What's up, everybody? Soren Baker here on Unique Access Entertainment. We appreciate you guys supporting. As always, please hit that subscribe button. It's right there. As y'all know, it's free, and that enables us to keep growing and keep bringing you guys as many interviews as possible with as many phenomenal artists as possible. So please, please, please hit that subscribe button, like, promote, share, talk about us, be about us, so we can keep coming to you. Now, today is truly an honor and a privilege. We are joined by the fantastic, incredible, legendary MC Shan. MC Shan, thank you for coming through.
Thank you, but despite what he said, one of them honorary legendary artists, I'm not one of them. I'm just here.
But we'll see. But anyway.
How are you doing, brother? And thank you for having me on the show. Appreciate you.
Yes, yes. So many things I've always been wanting to talk about, so let's get right to it, man. Very early on in your career with the Marley Marl scratch, one thing I was always interested about was, I know the D.O.C Sucker DJs, you mentioned her at the end. Was it because of Sucker DJs and the scratching and all that, or what was your reason for writing her in there?
That was because that was my way in. It was like, oh, if I make a record about Marley, because at the time, remember, Shantae had just made her record, and we used to rhyme on the benches. So I'm looking at Shantae like, get the hell out of here. She made a record? So it's like, how am I going to get Marley to listen to me? So what I did was I went and I wrote a song called Marley Scratch that was totally about him, that made him like, oh, you know what I'm saying? So I had to scheme that to make it happen for me. So Marley Scratch was just one of them things that I had to come up with in order to get the person that I needed to see me pay attention.
And what, after he heard it or whatever, what was that first meeting like with him?
It wasn't even a meeting. We lived in the same project. It wasn't no meeting. It was just like, yo, we just went up to Marley's house. I knocked on the door like, yo, Marley, check this out. Because he already knew me from being out on the bench and whatnot. But now here this kid come with lyrics written on a paper bag. Back in the days, we ain't have phones and stuff to be sitting there writing and whatnot, be in the studio with a phone. We had actual paper. So I wrote Marley Scratch on a brown paper bag and went to his house and told it to him.
And what about the Dimples D line at the end?
Well, Dimples D, you heard Dimples D when she took her stand, she said, Marley, Ma. But that was where Marley got the cut from. Marley. That was Dimples D's record. You know what I'm saying? And so that's where he got those Marley. And it all came from that song. Yeah, she made a record about Marley before me, but wasn't as a killer. No disrespect to Dimple, but Dimples was the reason that I made the Marley Marl scratch.
Now, it's interesting because to me, it's always kind of weird because people, I think, don't understand or appreciate in some ways how significant females were to early on in the game with Roxanne Shantae, Dimples D, many others, Sha Rock, etc. So why do you think, even with these contributions and what you're referencing, that more people don't look at Dimples D, Roxanne Shantae, some of the early people?
Because when it comes to male rappers like myself, we ain't even pay them no mind. Y'all was in another category. Y'all battle each other, do y'all thing. We ain't even paying attention to them like that, yeah? Like, it's just like, oh, you know, it's like women are not in this game. It's like just to have a female vice president is fucking crazy, you know what I mean? But it's just, we didn't pay attention to the women like that. They was in a whole nother game. Although a woman started me in this game, I never looked at Shantae like a competition. I would never get on the stage and battle Dimples D, Queen Latifah, none of them, because they couldn't touch me. It was like, it was that male ego that we had. We ain't never pay attention to what they was doing. They had their own thing, we had our thing, and that's what it is. It was never gonna be we battling women. You know what I mean? It's just like it is.
Okay. And then early on in the game too, you were on so many different record labels before you settled in with Cold Chillin'. So with the Nia Records, MCA Records, Bridge Records, Cold Chillin'? What was going on where all these different labels were putting out your material?
I was a free agent.
So even with MCA, they didn't make you sign like a longer deal?
MCA, I didn't sign a deal with MCA at all. MCA was a thing that I did through Charlie Casanova and May James, and I was just a featured artist, which was the start of me showing that if you ain't in the right position with this paperwork, you're not going to get paid, because I don't think I ever seen a dime off of Feed the World. You know what I'm saying? And so when I was on MCA, there wasn't any contractual deals with MCA. So it was just, I was doing a favor for May James. Make this Feed the World record. They used me for what they could use me for at the time. And we tried to work with MCA, but they didn't know what to do with the bridge. So we just had to step off and make our own way about our own business. And that's how it came to be. I was on this label and that label and this label prior to me becoming put on Warner Brothers.
Okay. So with Feed the World, that, at least from my recollection and being a kid, that was, you know, one of the first major songs that I remember hearing that had that super social commentary edge after the message. And you know, we had some songs, but that one I think is one of the ones that doesn't get talked about, where you're really talking about important stuff and like helping people out and having goodness in your heart and helping people. So on the writing side.
But we know those kind of records never get any kind of. See, they tried it because that "We Are the World, We Are the Children" was around that time, right? So they tried to do something else and bring it up. But that just, you know, it just didn't work. And it's like it was more of a gimmicky type thing to them. It wasn't nothing that they were into MC Shan for the long haul. It's like, let's get him to do this and just whatever, you know?
Right. Well, to me, it's interesting in the sense that with Feed the World, Jane Stopped This Crazy Thing, and Cocaine so early on in your career that you had this huge amount of like social commentary, and the stories I thought were really powerful and vivid and things. So how did that spawn from what you had been doing prior to that before really getting on?
I really wanted to always tell stories. If you remember, can go back to the bridge, Dead Dream, Border Soul, You've Got to Try. I always, rap music in the beginning wasn't uplifting to our culture thing. We talked about the stories in our hood and things like that before, you know, so it was like me telling those stories was just a natural thing. So it was just natural to do it that way. Okay. Just telling the stories. And Jane Stopped This Crazy Thing. In every hood, there was a Jane. I was a John. If there was a Jane smoking crack, I was a John smoking crack, okay? And every hood knew this. And so just putting these stories out that the newspapers and the media is not putting out, that's what we were using rap music for in the beginning. It has turned to a whole different thing nowadays, where it's just like, oh, let's just be as ratchet and, you know. But we were like the griots of hip hop, and griots are the ones that use spoken word to pass down culture. Absolutely. And so my thing was, I wanted to follow Melly Mel. Melly Mel was one of those that were making songs that touched you. If you felt something with the lyrics. White line, vivid means a man is born with no state of mind, blind to the ways of mankind. See, I wanted to make songs like that, but better. I didn't want to use the simple Mel style. Mel had a style, but I wanted to come like, you know what I mean? But still preach and tell what, you know, just uplift. That's what all I'm saying. And every song that basically was a message, whether it was don't fuck with me, if it's don't mess with me because I'm that ill of a rapper, or don't mess with me because I know something you don't, or don't do that. You know, it was just always a message in it.
Right. Okay. And before we get to the bridge and stuff, I was curious though with Jane Stopped This Crazy Thing and Cocaine. taking, I always thought it was interesting, one, that they were together, but they were also different looks at a similar problem or the same problem. So can you explain why on one single, when there weren't even that many rap singles really coming out for real, that you did 2 cocaine/crack records on the same record? Like, that always was intriguing.
Look who we're talking to. Mr. Crack himself, Mr. Cocaine himself. And now, I will take that rap. There were so many others in the rap game that were doing cocaine and sniffing and smoking crack, but I would never tell their names. I've gotten high with these people, but I would never tell their names. But guess what? I'll take the stamp of the biggest crackhead in the rap industry. I'll take that boot for the rest of us. It's not a problem. And see, and why I made songs like that, because don't do what I do. It was more of a teaching thing. Although I might have been in the studio singing Jane Stop This Crazy Thing on cocaine and Justin sniffed the 8-ball, it was the thing of don't be like me. Don't do what I do, and don't take the fall that I took. It was more of a don't do it thing. Unlike the music today, it's like more drink more lean, smoke more weed, and fuck yourself up as much as possible. You know what I'm saying? Where my messages were different.
And that's why later, when I found out about your addiction issues, I was so surprised coming from those records. Was it weird, odd, strange, ironic? Like, what was that like for you?
It wasn't weird. Everybody was in the business doing it. See, what happened with the music business, cocaine was a rich man drug. At least it was thought at that time. And once rap artists started getting, we smoked weed. But once we started getting money, cocaine became the thing. And so it was like there was more people doing cocaine because it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Well, it was sex, drugs, and hip hop too. You know what I'm saying? But nobody wants to speak of it. But it just hit the black community harder than it hit other places. And it was just a thing of just put this message out. And on top of the fact that, yes, I was one that indulged in it. So I didn't tell everybody to go ahead and do coke. Now let's get off this drug subject, because I admitted this in the days. And we need to uplift people and tell them what's the positive things that Shan is doing. And all I can tell you is this, that once a drug addict, always a drug addict. And it's your fight that you're going to fight forever. Because to this day, every morning when I wake up, that dragon still scratches my chest. And it's my alternative, should I feed him or not? And I opted not to feed the dragon anymore. So he's basically a dead dragon. You know what I'm saying? And so, and there's no shame in my game. If I wanted to go up and do whatever, I've never did enough to I overdosed or nothing. So I'm not scared of it. You know what I'm saying? You only get scared of something when it does you dirty. I'm not scared of it, but I choose not to feed the dragon. Period.
Well, congratulations for beating it. That's a big thing.
And look, and I'm sitting in my bus to show you the the progress of not feeding the dragon. Because if I would have fed the dragon, I wouldn't have the things that I have now. My children wouldn't be in the position that they're in now. I've never had to go to rehab. And I'm only saying this because we're talking about this drug thing. You know, I've never had to go to rehab. I've always had to grab a hold of myself.
Right.
Right now, you want to know what my vice is? This is my vice. My whistles. And it's not even a problem. It's because I can.
All right. Well, then let's get into back to the music, which is what it's all about.
Right. Let's get into that. Let's leave that drug subject alone, because I can go on for days and days about that. And not, I just want to educate people on that. So it's like, let's just move on and let's do some other things, because I will talk to you forever about that subject, because I am part of that scene. I have been fucked up on drugs. I can be fucked up on drugs right now if I didn't decide to push that dragon down. Like I said, once a drug addict, always a drug addict.